Everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so today we're going to do a trade review, and this is going to be Fun Home um, by Alison Bechdel, or Bechdel, sorry. And it was not really a trade review, it's really a kind of a graphic novel memoir. Okay, so Fun Home is a graphic memoir written and drawn by cartoonist and illustrator Alison Bechdel. Bechdel is probably best known for a long running comic strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, and creating the Bechdel test. She's also received a MacArthur grant. For what it's worth, the Bechdel test is used in film criticism during discussions regarding female representation in movies. And in a nutshell, it asks, does a movie have at least two female or two women in it? Do they have names? And do they have a scene where they talk to each other about something besides a man? In Fun Home, Allison reflects on the death of her controlling father. She describes her relationship with him among growing up and details the discovery of her own lesbianism and sexuality. Mr. Bechdel is a teacher and part-time funeral director, hence the title Fun Home, short for funeral home. Mr. Bechdel is presented as a man who's slightly odd and a bit overbearing. His main passions seem to be classic literature and restoring the grand old house that the family lives in. And while he seems to run an orderly home, he wasn't a man that was comfortable showing outward expressions of affection, not even to his wife. As she gets older, Allison and her father grow a little bit closer as they share their love of literature. Allison comes out as gay to her parents in a letter, and not long afterwards discovers that our father has in the past had affairs with other men. This causes her to reassess her thoughts about him and her parents' marriage, and she has to recontextualize events that she was vaguely aware of as a child and now must process with new information. I really enjoyed Fun Home. It's well written, multi-layered, and very touching. The narrative jumped back and forth throughout time a few times, but never in a confusing manner, and usually to provide the reader with more insight to an event that might have been hinted at earlier or to expand on a revelatory scene. While Allison has two brothers, the main characters are her father, and her mother. She does a great job of portraying her parents as flawed yet well-rounded personalities, and she's able to present their points of view as well as her own. She also does a good job of establishing time and place time and place throughout the memoir. Much of this is done through the art, which is great. I like the controlled, clean lines, the details, the washes. There's a nice balance between semi-cartoony figures and more detailed scenery. She includes nice pen and ink illustrations that are meant to evoke old photographs. There's hand-drawn text pieces and maps and intriguing background details to help add another dimension to the storytelling and provide a sense of space. And just to give you kind of a example of some of the art, let's see here. Here's something that's kind of a looks like it's probably a recreation of a an old photograph, but there's better ones, better examples of that. Let's see. Here, here's a really nice one here. Let's see here. Here's an example where she's kind of recreated old letters. This is her dad at the funeral home. Here's an example of what I said. You've got kind of the sort of semi-cartoony art, but you have, I don't want to say realistic. Well, I guess I do want to say more realistic backgrounds. I mean, just look at the kind of detail they've got in that sort of rug there. Here you can see a good example of her draftsmanship. Again, there's her house. There's people standing around. There's her dad trying to fix things up. There's more stuff detailing their home. Let's see here. I thought there was a kind of interesting thing here. Here's where they talk about her dad dies and Apparently, it's a traffic accident, but she's kind of wondering if maybe it might not have been a quasi-suicide. Maybe, maybe not. More maps showing where the family members of her mom and dad lived in their hometown. They had once. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Here's where Allison's comparing her house to the Addams family, and she's done a good job here of recreating Charles Addams' art. And here she is comparing herself to Wednesday. But her parents at one time had dreams of doing a lot of living and traveling abroad, but real life kind of interfered, and it didn't quite happen the way they wanted to. Oh, here we go. Here's a interesting thing. Again, showing all the kind of handwritten letters. These are letters that her dad wrote to her mom while he was in the army. I thought this was funny. You see him writing a letter, and one of his friends is reading, "Haunt of Fear." That's one of the old EC horror comics that was out in the during the late 50s. And that's, right around that time that like I said, her dad and her mom got married right before she was born, so that makes sense there. Here's another cool photograph. This is from the beginning of their marriage. Here's her mom's passport picture. You compare the more realistic drawing there to, like I said, the kind of semi-cartoony depiction there. Here's Alison. Here's some interesting things where Alison is in college, checking out books on lesbianism. Here's this would have been the early mid 70s, or no, early 70s. So here's one of those 70s chairs they used to see in fancy places. Here's a funny thing. Excuse me. Oh, let me see here. Here's the thing where they're showing the, I guess, handyman that used to work around their house, who was the sometime babysitter for the kids. Check it out. They're listening to Blind Faith. Later it comes out that their dad had some kind of affair with that guy. Here's their dad. Here's Alison and her dad showing an interest in more swanky men's clothes. Here's something else that's a recreation of a photograph. And that's probably Roy. Later on, oh, this is pretty interesting. Well, this is a part that talks about how Allison for a year had OCD as a young person. She used to draw, or she used to write in a diary, and then she kept going back and making all these odd markings in their diaries and whatnot. Her mom gets involved in the theater during, and they're doing Oscar Wilde, of all things, either ironically or maybe not so ironically. Uh, at this point here, we're back to, or actually, let's not show that one. Oh, here's a scene where, she's college age or whatever, and they're actually kind of growing a little closer. And Allison's kind of come out, sorta, and she's kind of got hip to what's going on with her dad. And this is funny, or maybe it's not funny, but here they're talking about the movie Cruising. This was a John Frankenheimer movie that came out 79, 80, something like that, starring Al Pacino. And it was actually kind of controversial because a lot of people felt that, it had these kind of bad stereotypes or negative stereotypes about gay people. And it was like the whole thing was, it was kind of a thriller, and Al Pacino had to go undercover, and he had to get into the whole gay bondage scene, and people are like giving him drugs and all this sort of thing, and it's all really portrayed as like this really crazy decadent thing and whatnot. um but uh but okay. All right. So just to wrap up the review, Fun Home is a fine piece of work that pushes the medium of graphic storytelling forward, and does so in a sophisticated and unpretentious way. It was turned into a Broadway musical in 2015, and Bechdel has also written a memoir about her mother, which I think is called "Are You My Mom?", which is kind of a play on an old kids book, I believe. So, okay. So I guess that's that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and you guys have a great day.